as soon as you get here. If you have an idea to stay in America after you graduate, it's never too early to start thinking about what can I do today to enhance my ability to stay here or to lower the risk of not being able to stay here. And speaking to a competent immigration lawyer can be beneficial. My name's Michael Serotte. I am an immigration lawyer. I've been practicing immigration law for almost 30 years, I think. So if you come here as a freshman and you've never had any formal education other than high school, you should understand what the roadmap is to when I can start doing work, when I can get work authorization, what can I do while I'm in school, what can I do when I graduate from school. If you're coming here for a master's or some other advanced degree, well, then you may have some opportunities now to plant your foot to really enhance your ability to stay here afterwards. For example, the H-1B lottery. All you need is a bachelor's degree or equivalent to file. So if you're doing your master's degree, chances are you already have a bachelor's degree. If you've been 5 or 6 years experience in the workforce abroad, that could be very beneficial for you to stay here. And then what are my options? So you need to figure out where you were born, citizenship of your parents. Did you ever work in your home country? Who did you work for? Is it a family company or is it a friend? What are you going to do here? Am I going to start a company? Well, just starting the company here, you may be able to use your experience and your education abroad to give you a better opportunity and position and visa here. So getting that information early and staying up to date on the changes and how my own, or I should say your education, your work is going to be super beneficial when you get to that point when you graduate. But I would say most people are thinking about it when they're juniors. And if you do talk to an immigration counsel when you're a junior, you're going to have enough of a runway to do certain things to put you in a better position than if you never spoke to an immigration lawyer. You can't really do much when you're a freshman or a sophomore, except under very limited circumstances. But as a junior, probably November, December, January, February before the lottery is a good time to talk to a lawyer. As long as you're in school, you can stay here, and under certain situations, you can get work authorization even when you're in school. When you graduate, if you have a STEM degree, you get 3 years automatically, basically. I mean, it's really simple. It doesn't require a lawyer to do anything. And then you have those shots at the H-1B. And then during that period of time, you can build your credentials for an O1. I'm assuming you're not coming from a treaty country. And then, after those, during that 3-year period, if you are able to build your credentials, that's great. You can switch to an O1. And then eventually you can go to the green card. Those people who cannot build their credentials, well, they have the H-1B. And then what happens if I don't win the lottery and I don't have an O1 and I'm done with my OPT in STEM? Well, you can go back to school. You can get an advanced degree. And there's certain programs in the United States that call Day 1 CPT. Legitimate. They're all STEM. You enroll in school and you get on Day 1 CPT, curricular practical training, which allows you to work. And under the right circumstances, you can work for your own company. So that buys you another year to try the lottery and to build your credentials, right? And then when you graduate, you can get OPT. So what we try to do is understand each person's individual education and background, what their goals are, because everyone is a little bit different. There's no blanket solution for anyone other than a marrying American. It's a bad word in today's society, but the fact is, it is discriminatory. The whole immigration system was originally set up to protect the health and well-being of Americans, but then eventually, as labor unions became more powerful in the advent of the Industrial Revolution, and they gained political power, they said, hey, wait a second. These immigrants are coming in here and they're taking jobs away from Americans. So over the course of the last 50 to 60 to 70 years, the laws changed to basically be discriminatory. America wants the best, the brightest, and the richest. That's why they call it EB1, employment-based first preference. That's why they have an O visa, outstanding ability. That's why an H-1B requires at least a bachelor's degree. So they preference it by saying, hey, if you are one of the best, the brightest, and the richest, according to our criteria, then we're going to make it easier for you to be in America. If you go lower on that totem pole, well, that means there's probably more Americans who can do the job that you want to do. So we're going to have to make it a little bit more difficult, if not almost impossible, to work here, get a work visa, start a business here. So a lot of things go into this. One is, what country are you a citizen of? What country is perhaps your spouse a citizen of? Can you obtain other type of citizenship? Because America likes certain countries, EU countries, Australia, New Zealand. And, from political purposes, maybe they don't have such a great relationship with Russia, China. So it's really fascinating. And there's so much information. It's hard to sift through it all on the internet. So finding a competent immigration lawyer is going to be really beneficial early on. As a student, I would not listen to everything that you hear and everything that you read on the internet.
Widespread abuse in our immigration system is allowing American workers of all backgrounds to be replaced by workers brought in from other countries to fill the same job for sometimes less pay. This will stop. American workers have long called for reforms to end these visa abuses, and today their calls are being answered for the first time.
It's all about catching eyeballs. I would focus on, okay, what can I do here to further my career? And just be cautious, right? Don't be stupid about stuff. You're a guest here. You don't have the same rights as a citizen. You don't want to promote anti-American philosophies and behaviors on the internet. If you want to have a discussion in your home quietly, like a lot of us do, you can do that. But just don't be stupid about things. Just focus on your studies, focus on your career, focus on starting businesses, and you'll be fine. But be cautious. Stay off social media, except pursuing your career or your business. Don't lay into any politics or anything that might be controversial. Listen, social media is a fascinating phenomenon, and it's a way to get your voice out there and to be heard, and also to promote yourself and your business. But you have to remember that you're a guest in America, right? And you don't necessarily have the same rights as an American citizen, or for that matter, a permanent resident. And there is provisions in the law that allow the government to basically question whether you are promoting anti-American activities through what you say in social media. What you have to understand is that when you apply for a visa, the State Department, the visa officer, will look at your social media. When you apply for a change of status in the United States or an extension of status, that USCIS officer is tasked to look at your social media. If they see anything that is inconsistent with what your status is, meaning that if you're promoting yourself as the president and CEO of a company, you don't have work authorization, you're probably going to get in trouble. If you're promoting anti-American activities, and what does that mean? That means whatever the government wants it to mean at this point. So I just say, stay off social media. When I think about the sort of birth of America from the immigration standpoint, you think about the people who came here. They were explorers, right? They were people who were escaping some sort of persecution, religious, economic, right, social. I mean, these people had guts, no money, probably didn't speak the language. And America always and historically sort of puts on a pedestal the entrepreneur, the risk taker. So that sort of mindset is welcome. But you're not on an even playing field with an American citizen who can be in school and just start the business. You, as an entrepreneur, while you don't have work authorization, you need to understand what you can do and what you can't do, right? For example, you can form a company. You can be on the board. You can be the majority shareholder. What you can't do is hold a position that works at the company on a day-to-day basis. So you cannot be president. You cannot be CEO unless you have work authorization. What do? You kind of hack the system. Why do I use the word hack? Because most entrepreneurs are looking at a problem, they're trying to hack that problem and come up with a solution. This is why I align myself with them, and I think it's fascinating. So when you're in school, you can do a lot of things. You can raise money, you can meet with investors, you can form the company. That the so-called hack is, hey, I have a real product or service, but I don't have work authorization. What can I do? Well, my co-founder is an American. So we can both be on the board, and the board can make decisions, and then those decisions can be executed by the American citizen who can go out there and do that. So that's a little hack, right? You can go out and raise money too. So you compare that to the typical student who can graduate, get OPT, and get STEM if they're in a STEM degree. I mean, their paths are pretty straightforward. But if you want to run the company, you really have to be creative and have the right mindset. And it's also kind of a economic analysis to some extent, risk reward. There are certain things you have to do as the entrepreneur and founder of a company that may be on the edge of work, right? Understanding what are the chances of me getting caught, and if I do get caught, what are the ramifications? And then weighing that to, I really need to get this company going. I really need to do that. It is a thin line that you walk, but it's the kind, it requires the kind of mindset that a successful entrepreneur has to have in America. Big employers, most of them have very strict immigration policies. They're not going to be creative in their solutions unless you are, a Nobel Prize winner or a genius or something like that. So what is it? It's like, okay, look, you're going to come work for us. You're going to get your OPT. You can work for a year. We'll do your STEM. That's another 2 years. We'll try the lottery for you. And after a few years, we'll do the green card for you. But we're not going to stretch the boundaries of our handbook policy. And that can be a disadvantage as if I'm the foreign national entrepreneurial type. Startups, on the other hand, are competing against the big companies. And they can't necessarily pay the same salary, but what they do offer, besides the upside of owning stock, is more creativity on the immigration solution. You don't have to wait 3 years or 2 years to start a green card process. The startup company can start the green card process for that individual. They can engage the services of an immigration lawyer and help them build their O1 or EB1 criteria. And that's really important if you're coming from certain countries like China and India, which have this huge backlog. So I like to say that the startup founders can utilize immigration as a competitive advantage. And you can get the best and the brightest by, again, hacking that and saying, look, I'm going to do whatever I can to help you stay here. Just help me build this company. Google, you're one of 100,000 employees, and nothing against Google. Some of the best founders come out of Google, but they're not going to hack the system the same way a founder might. Before 2010, most of the practice dealt with Canadians, investors, companies coming over, getting jobs, buying businesses, and so forth. One of my dear friends who started out as a client who ended up exiting his business in the late 90s. And, he sold his business to Cisco for like $1.2 billion. That's when $1 billion actually meant something, right? So he calls me up one day and he says, look, you got to help my daughter. And I'd known the kids since they were 7 and 9 years old. And I said, what's up? She says she's out in San Francisco. She started a company with this girl from Romania, and they're not happy with the immigration advice that they're getting in San Francisco. And I'm like, sure, put me, connect me. So I've known her for years. We started talking. She introduced me to the Romanian co-founder who had graduated from Stanford. And they were actually going through StartX, which is Stanford's accelerator program. It was their second cohort. It was a long time ago, right? And she was really frustrated. She was starting this business. They really didn't raise much money yet. They didn't have any employees other than 2 of them, but she was facing leaving the country. So we sort of looked outside the box. I said, okay, look, you're capable of getting an H-1B visa, but not for your company because your company can't support it yet. So let's find another company that is in a position to support you that you can work part-time for while you're building your own company. Right. And she says, oh, yeah. Well, do you have any companies? And I actually did. It was her co-founder's father's company, one of them. So we went to him. He said, look, this is how we can solve this founder's problem. At the time, there was no lottery. You could file it at any time. We filed the H-1B. It got approved. And she did provide services to this other company while she was sort of working covertly, because she had an American partner building the company. Within 6 months or so, that company actually raised money, hired some people, and it was in a position to support the co-founder. And then we filed a change of status to the H-1B and got that. And then we said, you know what? That's not necessarily the best visa for you. Why don't we do an E2 visa? Because she came from Romania. And because she owned 50%, which is one of the requirements, and the American owned 50%, it worked. The problem is, in the startup business, eventually the founder's equity gets diluted. When that happens, she doesn't own 50%, which is a requirement of the E2 visa. However, the law says you don't have to have ownership. You have to have control. And this is important. This is what lawyers have to look at. They have to look at the law and interpret the law to their client's favor. I always like the expression, we are the ones who make the laws, not the government. We the ones who argue it in our favor. So what we said is, hey, look, if you provide your co-founder a voting proxy, then she would have the 50% control. And we did, and it filed, and it worked. And eventually she got her green card. So that was the first one. And that got me into Silicon Valley because StartX was pretty prominent. And it grew from there. And I loved that space. I mean, you're dealing with these really super smart, entrepreneurial people from all over the world. Stanford's probably the best place to do that. And that led to being introduced to that whole startup community. I think you have to find the right partner. You're probably not going to maneuver through the immigration maze by yourself. So you really have to find that partner, and when I say partner, I mean lawyer, who you connect with, and someone that you can establish a relationship with, especially if you're someone who wants to pursue your own business. Because if you go work for a big company, they have immigration counsel. And you may get to the point where the big company, you're not necessarily trusting the counsel you're getting because you're not able to talk to the lawyer. They're giving you cryptic answers. It's sort of opaque. If you're on the other side of the spectrum, the startup, the founder spectrum, the entrepreneurial spectrum, you got to find a lawyer that you can trust and start developing that relationship. And from there, let that give you that sort of strategic pathway. These are your options today if you go A, B, and C, and lay it out for you so that every step that you take, it's going to benefit you one way or the other from an immigration standpoint. If you have work authorization for your company and you're getting promoted, meaning you raised money, it's important to make sure that the article talks about this, quote, new process or invention that you created. Not just some blanket, hey, ABC company just raised $5 million on a seed round. It's not just, it's in the field of AI. It's like Serotte invented this. And what's important to understand is you don't have to be the only person who invented it. But it's important that you create evidence that says that you invented it. So, because that's what the government law says. It's like, if I want to build the fastest path, the green card, other than marriage, it's EB1, it's O1. And it has to be about you, not about the company. And I explain this to American founders and foreign founders. Hey, look, American, you don't need this. He needs it. Give it to him. So that's the kind of guidance that you need. And then along the way, go back to your lawyer. Hey, look, I have an opportunity to do this conference. How should I phrase it, in the book in terms of what I'm talking about? You have these conversations and you develop this relationship. You know the destination, and the lawyer and you should create the journey. And then everything sort of adds together. And, I'll end with, I remember Steve Jobs' I think it was 2005, 2006 commencement speech at Stanford. And he talked about three things. One of them was connecting the dots. It's always resonated with me. I mean, shit happens today, which you really don't understand why it happens. But if you get up every morning, brush your teeth, wash your face, put on your clothes, and take a step forward, eventually you'll figure out why those dots connect. But as a foreign national coming here, you need to plan that those dots do connect. It's going to be helpful for you. So that's why it's important to start early with someone that you trust and someone to help you map out that journey. we often head out to Palo Alto and do these cohort presentations at Stardex. And then afterwards, we'll have office hours, and Stardex members will come in and we'll talk to them about their individual cases. So a number of years ago, there was an office hour. His name was Ali. He comes in, he's tall, good looking, very energetic. And he's like, look, you need to help me get my green card. It's like, why? It's like, I got a $500,000 government grant that I need to secure. Maybe it was more. And these other lawyers had filed these cases. Both of them got denied, and I'm frustrated as hell. And I believe I can get it. I need your help. I mean, right off the bat, the guy was like very energetic, well-spoken. I connected with the guy. So I said, okay, tell me about your case. What did you do? So I asked him a series of questions, and he gives me the answers. I solicit more information. And after about 15, 20 minutes, I go, Ali, I tell you what, I think we can do it. I was like, you can? It's like, yeah. Well, why do you think so? I said, well, did the lawyer ask you this? No. Did the lawyer ask you this? No. Did the lawyer ask you this? No. Okay. So what the lawyer did is gather the information that you gave them and then sent this petition in. What they failed to do is create a story that would resonate with the officer. Now we've created a story. You told me that this is what you've done and you can get this stuff. He says, yeah. I said, okay, great. He says, you can do it? I said, look, you're telling me you can get the evidence. I can create the story. You got to get the evidence. He says, okay. We worked on the case. We got him the green card. He was very appreciative of it. And, even to this day, like last week, he literally became an American citizen, which was really cool. I would say some of my best friends are people I met in the practice. And even at my advanced old age, I still get up every day looking forward to growing the business, working with fascinating people and solving problems. And that to me is like, here's a problem, let's solve it.